Today, I want to tell you an incredible story about how English took me to my dream, my passion, and my success. If you have big dreams, to become a doctor, engineer, lawyer, businessman, or anything great, then you need English 100%. There is no doubt about it. English is spoken by 1.5 billion people around the world. It is the language of travel, business, and the internet. If you don't speak English, you might miss big opportunities, like getting a better job, making international friends, or enjoying movies and books in their original language. But don't worry, you can start learning today and become part of this global community. If I can learn English and achieve my dream, you can too. My name is Sophia, and I am from Brazil. I was born in a small town in Brazil. My family was not rich, not poor, just middle class. We had enough to live, but we couldn't afford luxuries. My parents worked very hard every day. My father was a taxi driver and my mother was a school teacher. They always told me, education is the key to success. Since I was a little girl, I had only one dream, to become a doctor. I still remember the moment that changed my life. I was 10 years old. I was in the hospital because my little brother was very sick. He had a very high fever and we were scared. My parents were crying. Then a doctor came. He was calm, confident, and full of kindness. He smiled and said, "Don't worry. I will take care of your son." I watched him work. He checked my brother, gave him medicine, and spoke with so much knowledge. And then, after a few hours, my brother's fever was gone. He was safe. At that moment, I knew. One day, I will become a doctor and save lives. But as I grew up, I realized something terrible. If you want to become a doctor, you need English 100%. All medical books are in English. All medical research is in English. Even in my country, doctors needed English to study, to communicate, to work in hospitals. And my English was terrible. I went to a public school where they taught very little English. I knew basic words like, "Hello, how are you?" But when I saw a full English sentence, I felt lost. I remember in school my English teacher asked me, "Sophia, can you read this sentence?" I looked at the book. The words were dancing. I could not read. I could not understand. I wanted to cry. "I don't know, miss," I whispered. The class laughed. That day I went home and sat alone in my room. I thought, how will I become a doctor if I can't even read a simple sentence in English? I felt hopeless. But then something happened that changed everything. One evening, my father came home tired from work. He sat next to me and said, "Sophia, what is wrong? You are always sad these days." I looked at him and said, "Papa, I want to become a doctor, but my English is bad. Without English, I cannot study medicine." My father was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "If English is stopping you, then learn English. Go to a place where everyone speaks English." I was shocked. "But Papa, we don't have money for that." He smiled and said, "We don't have much, but we have enough. Your dreams are important." That night, my parents and I sat together and talked about the best place to learn English. Why did we choose Canada? 1. Everyone speaks English. I would have no choice but to speak English every day. 2. Great education system. Canada has the best schools for learning English. 3. Multicultural and friendly people. People in Canada are warm and kind to international students. 4. Affordable compared to other countries. Studying in the USA or the UK was too expensive, but Canada was possible. It was not an easy decision. We were a middle-class family. My parents had some savings, but not much. They made a huge sacrifice. They used almost all their savings to pay for my flight, my English school, and my first few months of living in Canada. Before leaving, my mother held my hand and said, "Sophia, we are giving you everything we have. Promise me, you will not give up." I had tears in my eyes. I hugged her and said, "I promise, Mama." And then, with one suitcase, a little money, and a big dream, I flew to Canada. The moment I landed in Toronto, Canada, I felt like an alien. The weather was freezing. In Brazil, it was always warm, but here, my hands were like ice. The food was strange. I missed my mother's homemade Brazilian rice and beans. The people were nice, but they spoke so fast. And then, the biggest problem, English. At the airport, a man asked me, "Hey, do you need a taxi?" I panicked. I did not understand. I just smiled and said, "Yes." He said, "Where to?" I had no idea what he said. My brain stopped working. Finally, I showed him the address on my phone. That night, in my small rented room, I cried. What am I doing here? I can't understand anything. How will I survive? For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. The next day, I went to my English language school. The teacher smiled and said, "Welcome, everyone. Let's introduce ourselves." When my turn came, I stood up. My hands were shaking. I said, "My name, Sophia. From Brazil." I wanted to say more, but my mind was blank. My words were stuck in my throat. The teacher smiled, but I saw some students laughing. I sat down and felt humiliated. That night, I made a decision. No matter how hard it is, no matter how many mistakes I make, I will learn English. I made a plan. I promised myself, I will do everything possible to become fluent. And that was the beginning of my English learning journey. I still remember my first few weeks in Canada. It was like stepping into a new world, exciting but also terrifying. Everything was different. In my country, I understood everything. Here, I felt like a baby learning how to speak. Before I tell you how I improved my English, let me tell you about the strangest things I noticed in Canada. No school uniforms. In Brazil, students wore uniforms. But in Canada, children wore anything they wanted. Some wore pajamas to school and nobody cared. People don't touch much. In my country, we hug, kiss on the cheek, and stand close. But in Canada, people like personal space. If you hug someone without asking, they feel uncomfortable. Weather changes in seconds. 1 minute, it's sunny. The next, it's raining or even snowing. Self-checkout in stores. In many supermarkets, there was no cashier. People scanned and paid for their own groceries. People say sorry for everything. Even if you step on their foot, they say sorry. I found that so funny. Food portions are huge. I once ordered a small meal at a restaurant, and it was like food for 3 people. But the biggest shock was the English. People spoke so fast and used slang I had never heard before. In school, I learned proper English, but in real life, people said things like, "Want to grab a coffee? Want to get a coffee? I'm down for that." I agree. That's so lit. That's amazing. I felt like I had never studied English in my life. The second day in my English class, I was so nervous. The teacher gave us a simple writing task. I was excited. I can do this, I thought. But when she returned my paper, it was full of red marks. She said, "Sophia, your writing is good, but your sentence structure needs work." You think in Portuguese and translate to English. That's why it sounds strange. I felt frustrated. Speaking was even worse. The teacher asked me a question, and I knew the answer in my head. But when I opened my mouth, nothing came out. I felt like crying. Will I ever speak English fluently? I refused to stay weak in English. I knew that if I didn't improve, my dream of becoming a doctor would die. So, I made a plan.